He helped make the music that a whole, cherished by a whole generation. But that was never a well-known visage that everyone knew. While he built while people were watching. The hard-off music from behind the scenes. From queerding studios to huge, Benny Andersson on stages all over the world. Lived through the beginning, the end, and separate, and the return of one of pop. One of the most well-known bands in music. But the tale, he's on Leno talking about how sharing isn't about sparkly disco balls or flashy clothes. About being exhausted, apologetic, and broken. Melancholy quiet that comes with relationships. Came after everyone stopped clapping. After a lot of people guessing for a long time. Benny has finally spoken, and his truth is deeper, sadder, and more eye-opening than anyone expected it would be. Making a kingdom of sound before the world ever danced to the beat off. Dance to the happy song or sob to the sad song. The winner gets everything. Benny Andersson was already busy making hidden the base of what will become one of the most important things that pop music has left behind. Near the Vasan region on December 16, 1946. Benny grew up in Stockholm. Working-class family where music was not a job you could do but a love, a custom. His dad, who made stuff, and his grandfather, who learned on his own. Music gave Benny an accordion when he was 6 years old. That simple tool would start a passion with music and harmony that he would always have. How it is for a lot of other youngsters is not like this. Benny was not driven by desire to be famous, to be seen. He was more interested in finding out how music works, from the math-like structure of Bach to the realistic stories from Swedish. He taught himself piano by singing folk songs to him, hearing and being able to copy melodies after only hearing them once or twice. But he was already playing by the time he was 10. For school and family get-togethers. People didn't know him not for showing off, but for his natural talent, to get the tone and feeling. In 1964, Benny joined the while he was only 18 years old. Heap Stars is a Swedish rock band that people called them the Swedish Beatles. Fire sound got a lot better when he joined. Almost right away, the group got started, reaching #1 on the charts in Sweden. Featuring songs like Sunny Girl and Wedding. Benny wrote the songs himself. Vincerly Victories not only showed his capacity to write music that people remembered, but it also helped him get better at working in the studio and on stage. Heck rapidly became regarded as the band's musical brain and simultaneously studying quantly concerning the business and technological parts of your field. Then came a big night in 1966. Benny met Bjorn while they were both playing at a celebration for a pal. Bjorn, who was in the What Any Singers, a folk pop group, loved harmony, structure, and small things, just as Benny did. Their jam session that night led to an instant musical partnership. In the next few years, they began to write together, making an effort, different spirits and structures, and even writing songs for other Swedish artists. Their bond at work grew strong, not just because they valued one another, in addition to each other, because they balanced perfectly with each other. Bjorn, the smart and emotive songwriter, writer of lyrics. By the early 1970s, Benny and Bjorn were not writing partners, and also going out with 2 other musicians, Agnetha Falskog, a Swedish #1 soloist, and Annie Fred Lingstedt, a pop vocalist who used to be a jazz performer with a strong Lotto voice. Their band took form under the long name Bjorn and Annie Fred and Benny Agnetha. The name was uncomfortable, yet the chemistry is strong. Electric. They sought to win but failed. Swedish competition for Eurovision and 1973. They came back the next day without giving up. Next year with Waterloo, a pop tune with a lot of flair. That won the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest. Contestant created them right away. International stars. Not long after, chose a name that would stick in people's minds, ABBA, using the first letters of their first moves. Benny was no longer not just a pop singer anymore. He was a sound architect. He took care of each tune, like a painting, adding instruments on top of each other, putting voice harmonies together flawlessly, and testing out synthesizers long before it was cool. He was in the studio, noted for Bain Padiant and seeking. Everything is perfect. Sometimes it costs days redoing a single harmon. It felt emotionally correct. He didn't care in what people liked. He was curious in what would last forever. Even as Agnetha and Annie Fred a Matzi dance in matching jumpsuits and Jor wrote smart, sad but nice lyrics. Benny was the one who made ABBA's music sound the way it does. Music. His signature was a blend of vibrant colors, profound depth, a Swedish grief that's veiled in melody. Songs like Knowing Me, Knowing You. You and Fernando brought this combination. Happiness. On the surface, sadness behind that wasn't merely a gift to pop music from Benny, but to generations of others who heard it and felt something deeper in ABBA's music to listen to. Benny Andersson's basic tunes are true. He wasn't just writing tunes, he was constructing a kingdom where every chord, every note, and every pause were important. Whereas the light often shone on the way Faba's music is structured in other places, was absolutely him coming apart while growing higher for most of the 1970s. ABBA rode a tide of stardom that couldn't be stopped, yet, as the band got more famous, it started to break down, the dropping in private. It wasn't sudden, it was gradual, sluggish like a home that has been worn down by time, rather than being destroyed by fire. The first Bjorn and obtained a divorce in 1979. Divorced, it was very personal. Breakup, but the band tried to handle competently at the time that the group was working on the Thyro album. Trooper, and the songs stayed the same. Signature after polishing, the recording. The sessions started to feel heavy. 2 years later, Benny and Annie Frid followed the same way. Once, their connection had been called Angry and Connected, a real musical love story. They met in 1969, long before ABBA, and created a sound link before Anna thinks. Annie Fred said this in 1975. Benny comprehended her in an interview that, in a way that no one else did. But getting it in the studio didn't always work in real life. Like Benny's compulsive heparin, which made him great in the studio and then departed. Not much room for being emotionally available. At home, Annie Fred, who was very expressive and felt the growing absence emotionally. But Benny said he fell in love in 1981 with Mannerlit, a producer for television he met on a TV show. He said to Donnie, "Tell Fred the truth, but it was too late." The breakup was quite professional, but it made a significant incision in the band's dynamic. The following and last studio album, The Visitors, which came out that same year, exhibited the setting of emotional coldness. Songs like When All Is Said and Done, Slipping Between My Fingertips, dripping with pain that isn't spoken. The shine was going away. And even though the band would go on for another year, thus my item was important. Already gone, which proves that the quiet we all felt. For more than 40 years, the end of ABBA's tale was not characterized by, not by shocking headlines, but by a quiet that was deafening. Not like Melendry, bands that go on a farewell tour, a news conference about the split, or some last. ABBA just did an emotional performance. Their last official single, Under Attack, came out in December 1982. To do it didn't have the effect it wanted. Of their hits from that year, there was no follow-up. Up the Butt, no world tour, no curtain call, merely a slow fading into the mist and fan theories that would go on for decades. They left a hole when they weren't there. Into the pit, questions without answers. Why did they stop while they were still so well? Did money break them up? Apart? Was it personally creative? Fighting? For years, none of the band members gave you a clear answer. The interviews were still ambiguous. The break word drifted around in their public. It became rare and meticulously planned when they showed up. ABBA became a myth in many ways. Stuck in time. The best pop band. Something just stopped existing without explanation. That changed on November 20th. To 4. Benny Andersson has been known for a long time for his thinking and not wanting to deal with personal ability, sat down for an interview with the newspaper The Guardian. He didn't come with a rehearsed narrative. There was no written statement from a PR or refined PR spin. Benny did something else. Anything that doesn't happen very often. He told the truth. In plain terms, we were tired, to be honest. Marriages were breaking up. The song began to sound false. We had to stop to save ourselves. But easy. There is little doubt that this is harder than any controversy ever could. Just a dot in. Benny confirms what a lot of people have been saying in a few sentences. Long-standing supporters had always thought the breakup didn't happen because of cheating or artistic fighting. It had come from feeling empty inside. After years of doing, recording, and keeping up, the look of happiness while their personal lives fell apart behind these. The group was tired, in a big way, in a quiet way, and in a full way. Benny followed up in April 2025. Billboard magazine interview, giving even more information. Described the last 2 years of the band. 1. 1981 and 1982 were uninspired work days. What used to be a lively collaboration had become a habit. He and Bjorn were still writing, but not in the same way. Aim or vigor. The tunes came more slowly. The studio time was less time. Everything was starting to feel. It felt like a job, not a passion. Even more, Benny's explanation of how the group's choice to stop. He didn't call it off all year. He didn't make it sound romantic. He said it was something that had to happen, that it wasn't possible to keep going. Not anymore. He told us we couldn't continue on, not claiming to be someone else. This wasn't just an admission. Eye-opening. It made me feel better. For many years, fans had heard that the last albums like The Guests felt different, more contemplative and sorrowful. Songs like one of like an angel going through my and the day before you came, you didn't. They weren't merely sad, they were. There was a weightiness in the lyrics and arrangements. They displayed something more than pop trends. People could feel it even if they didn't say it. Benny's admission showed that emotion, right? Feeling like something is coming apart below. The polished surface wasn't just imagination. It really happened. What is striking is that none of Benny's news had a harsh taste. He didn't put the responsibility on Bjorn, Agnetha, or Annie Fred. Instead, he talked about the bands and Licky. A wonderful conclusion that comes naturally. Mencken that has run its course. He remarked that we knew what we could do. There was nothing left for us to contribute. Eithanously. For supporters, it was the chlorthy never knew they needed. The enigma was no longer a mystery. There was a purpose for the stillness. And a lot. Thean that had reverberated through ABBA's last songs now had a tiredness, emotional breakdown, and the quiet need to leave. Annie Fred's journey through grief and royalty. After ABBA's silent finish, no one knew where Annie Fred was going. Not what they thought. She got married in 1992. Princess Hinrich Rauso Roos of Plauen. Joining the royal family in Europe, the Swedish press went crazy. How could the same woman who used to be in charge dance floor could be living in a castle in Switzerland, going to parties and banquets? The life becoming a princess wasn't like the fairy tale. Looked like it was. Annie Frid had a hard time with the strictness of aristocracy, expectations, the unplanned and the emotion that made her a great performance. Didn't fit into the organized world of royalty. Then followed the deepest, the worst heartbreak of her life in 1998. And Liz Lott's kid died in a car. An accident in New York. She was only 30 years old. It was terrible to lose. Woman who used to sing to millions now ends its quietness. Sad in her, a private residence near Lake Geneva. Her monarchy, the fame of her past, it all palled in comparison to the emptiness left by the substance of her daughter. And nevertheless it was Benny Harappa back then. He reached out despite vathing, shared a past that no one else could understand. And in their peaceful, there was comfort in reconnecting. Not in going back to the good old days, but in the knowledge that only 12 persons, who has witnessed everything go apart, could really share. Annie Fred, who used to wanted attention to feel that they were seen, had no discovered peace in just bound, not by the world, but by Simeon, who had known her before all of this, coming back without feeling bad. After 2018, the unthinkable happened after decades. ABBA got back together to make 2 new tracks. The news rocked the music world. The world. Not only because it terminated a 36 years of silence, but also because it marked the start of one of the biggest, one of the most grandiose efforts in music history. ABBA's trip. Benny and Bjorn by 2021 had made a full-length album in the studio, had the same name, and Benny had taken complete control over production. But more, the performance was better than the music. Style that changed everything. ABBA Voyage wasn't a normal concert. It was a digital event. Using movement, capturing and avatar technologies, Benny and the crew made a copy of the band from 1979. Themselves playing live with a 10-piece band in a purpose-built arena in London. The show was a huge success because, starting in May 2022, it has sold more than 1.3 million tickets sold, drawing in fans from over 140 different nations. The digital avatars didn't only copy, went above and above what was expected. Benny always the craftsman was in charge of even the smallest sound design details that demand that the emotionally real performance. Exact and technically leaflets